Okay, we are here. Finish off Alloy of Law. I apologize for the mess I just assembled, if you can't tell. New chair, because that one was about to fall apart. You guys don't care. Point is, it was about to fall apart, and I thought to myself, I should clean this up before I do all this, and then I said, nah. Sorry if I'm distracted as well. I am watching my sister's dog, who is sitting right next to me. Let's face it, it's the internet. You want to see the dog, don't you? 1 second. All right. This is Scout, everyone. Scout's camera shy, but this is Scout. Everyone, give up votes for dog. Fine, you're not a prop. So, let's finish this. The Haze Killer round works like a dream. I love seeing it. I love seeing it in action. I mean, talk about a promise you have to fulfill. We have to see the Haze Killer round finally work, and it did. And it did. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I should probably edit that out. I'm not gonna. I especially liked seeing Push feel so confident as he's like gonna push it back. It's dumb to begin with, because if you ended up in a pushing match with Wax, you're gonna lose every single time. Dude can make himself weigh as much as a truck. Not that they have trucks back. Okay, let's move on. Wax staves Steris, and we see your first little bit of Steris having a little thing for danger. I love that little touch. I also just love that. Nuke Soul's there too. Okay, I guess we can save him. And Wax just like, all right. So can you two swim? No. Okay. Well, good. You can swim. Awesome. Let's do this. And he just pushes them out into the night to save them. It's a simple. It's not a difficult solution, but I love his entire fight on the way up to them is just it's excellent pacing by Brandon. Just gotta enjoy how he's pushing nails down on people, how he's manipulating his weight in order to get places he shouldn't, as he's sort of like I don't know, any of you who play first person shooters, I don't know about you, but it just reminds me so much of playing things like Call of Duty and trying to get into little corners and such, and constantly playing this game of cat and mouse so that you're never where your opponent thinks that you should be. It's such a great touch. Brandon did an amazing job with this fight. But after saving them, Wax saves his most impressive allomantic feat for last. When he sort of pushed everything away from him at the dinner party, that was pretty cool. When he used his me to become as much heavy as a building so that they could escape the explosion, that was pretty awesome too. But this is the full combined might of his two abilities, and he just flattens a building. I mean, Miles isn't wrong when he says Wax is an army unto himself. The ability and destruction he could possibly wield with those two powers is insane. It's a really good thing that he's a coin shot and not a lurcher. The reverse of that would be devastating. Just pull all the nails towards you. Oh dear. That would be, wow, you hit the genetic lottery and somehow still lost. And thus, the plot comes full circle. We started this story with Wax having to make a shot to save a woman that he loves. And here we are with Tarson forcing Wax to take a shot to save a woman that he loves, at least as much as a friend. And he does have some feeling for her. And he's got the jitters. How could you not? After what he'd already gone through. But this time Wayne is there. And I like that idea that this is In many ways, this is the difference. The other difference, as far as I can tell, it seems there's something going on with the mists in Wax. Wax feels stronger out in the mists, and we know the mists can be burned for power. I mean, we see Vin do it. Part of me wonders if Sazed isn't giving Wax a little bit of extra help with the mists. Just a little bit of a nudge, because we already know that Wax is a pistol shot like none other. But this deflecting bullets in midair, even with the time dilation that Wayne's power gives, is incredible. And it also highlights the teamwork the two have. Because to pull off a feat like this, Wayne has to let go of his bubble at the exact right moment. They do. And Wax is able to shoot around a corner and hit Tarson right in the head. Although, of course, Wayne complains about hitting him in the head when he's wearing his lucky hat. We see that hat is lucky. But as far as individual feats that people have pulled off in the Cosmere, this bullet deflection has to be one of the most impressive ones. The last clap may be the only thing that tops it, but I would only put that ahead because of the stakes involved. You miss that bullet, someone else dies. You miss the last clap, you die. little more pressure there. Although, given Wax's personality, he'd definitely feel more pressure to save someone. Point is, what a shot. And thus we come to the final fight between Wax and Miles. The fight is in many ways more so a duel of philosophies. Miles, I love Wax realizing that had Miles been born in a different time, he would have been a hero. He was born to take on tyrants. But Wax is right. This isn't the time of the Lord Ruler. This society has severe issues. This all societies do. But it's not like the time of the Lord Ruler. We're literally there, you could just kill Ska without a question. This isn't the same society. It's a society that, at least from Wax's perspective, and I think we should agree, I think most reasonable people agree, is in need of reform, not revolution. Most societies are in need of reform versus revolution. It's a fine line to decide when that comes. And even if that's the case, you still have the question of, all right, let's say it's time for revolution. Why should you be the one in charge? And that's something I don't think Miles really gives credence to, because Miles seems to believe that might makes right, that because he can do these things, clearly the fates have decided that he should get to do these things. That men like him and Wax should be the ones to decide everything. Otherwise, why did they give him this much power? Which is, it ignores the entire idea of free will, randomness, and the importance thereof in a society. But it is a complicated topic, but it just, Wax sitting there and thinking he could have been a hero, right time. And because Miles is correct. I really do think Miles is correct when he says that Wax would have been working for the Lord Ruler in the final empire. I think Wax's dedication to law might have, okay, I shouldn't say there's a possibility that, given the circumstances, Wax might have been an inquisitor, which is a harrowing thought. And Wax is right that had he been born in the final empire, he would have been one of the greats, part of Kelsier's crew, trying to take down the Lord Ruler. It also retroactively highlights Kelsier's good fortune in being born when he was born. I mean, I say good fortune given what he went through. He wouldn't call that good fortune. But Kelsier, born in this time period, although we know he's now in this time period, but being born in this time period, I think is a little different. I mean, let's face it, this version of Kelsier is not the same one that we got in the Final Empire. This version of Kelsier has gone through some things. But had he been born in this time period, could have easily gone down the path of Miles Dagutte. There's just something so visceral the way Brandon describes Miles' beatdown of Wax, just the absolute just brutality of this man. Doesn't have enhanced strength. All he has is this healing. But that healing just means he doesn't stop. He doesn't ever stop. He doesn't ever tire. He doesn't even have to breathe. This man is so dangerous. But what ends up bringing him down? Marcy, who thought her powers so useless, ends up being the key. Partially because she can make such a big bubble, and also because she doesn't understand the value of wasting someone's time. It's seriously one of my favorite strategies in a lot of games is to just get people to waste their time going for things that they don't need to go for. Especially when I played Hearthstone. I loved playing fatigue deck. And that's essentially what she did. She played a fatigue deck. She got him to just sit there and bloviate while she just sat there and just let the hours tick down. While Wayne has gone off to get reinforcements because he's already blown his dynamite. There's nothing, not a thing Miles can do if just an entire army comes to take him down. He has the exact same gold compounding that the Lord Ruler had, but the Lord Ruler had every other type of compounding and was, much like Wax, an army unto himself. Think about the power of the Lord Ruler. He had both Miles and Wax's and Wayne's abilities. Never have lost to Finn. Don't get cocky, kid. As we move along, we get our next scene with Breton, who's suddenly just a lot more amenable to Wax. We know he has he died, I think it was a skiing accident or something, and the Chandra took over for him. I mean, it helps when God is literally on your side in the case of Wax, trying to make sure he stays in the city and helps reform everything and helps solve the problems. But Breton was an example of everything that Miles hated. The idea of these glory hound cops who are more worried about their reputation than actual justice. So, in some ways, I don't know. It highlights how Miles had a point, and that's one of the things I like about Brandon's villains is, for the most part, they tend to have a point. Unless you're Strathventure or Sadius, then you have no. You're just kind of a tool. Not kind of, actually, just very much a tool. What I'm basically saying is Strathventure got off too easy. Steris and Wax finally get to chat again after all these harrowing events, and they decide to go forward with their engagement. Now, obvious. Everyone thinks Steris is the bee's knees now. And I have to say, this is. Well, I have to take L's in other places. I get to take the W here. I always felt Steris was shortchanged in the first two books by the fans, and I had a feeling that we were going to see the good side of Steris sooner rather than later. But here's where we get to see the first flickers of who Steris is in the Bands of Mourning. that we see that she is very controlled, but she's not cold. She is awkward, not aloof. And Wax does the wise thing and agrees to go forward with the because Wax does have a lot weight on his shoulders going forward, and he needs someone of her means and her talents going forward. So I I think Brandon does a good job of foreshadowing the Steris that everyone would start saying is best girl. The execution of Miles' 100 Lives is spooky. I don't know how else to say it. Very spooky. Him just giving his speech about the men of red and gold coming for them and you should worship Trell, and him just getting shot over and over again. It's healing. Having clearly secreted some sort of metal mind into his body. There's something visceral about that. There's been more violent things in the Cosmere. I mean, heck, Vin liquefied someone's head. The Duralumin pewter burst. So there's been more gruesome, but something about that just is so creepy. So who are the men of red and gold or gold and red? I can't remember what order he does it in. There's been so much theorizing about this in the Cosmere community. The heavy favorite seems to be Trell is some sort of aspect of autonomy. And why wouldn't you assume that? After all, we see Trell in the White Sands comic book is on Taldane, but there's something to be said there. We also know that this era of books takes place after Era 1 of the Stormlight arc. One possibility I have not seen discussed post Rhythm of War, and I think bears some consideration, is Trell as a combined entity between autonomy and odium, or in this case, todium. There's plenty of reason for both shards to not like what's going on Scadrial. On one hand, you have odium. Brandon himself has said he is odium's worst nightmare. He's two gods in one. Now, he has issues using that power, but if he ever comes into that power, that's a problem for Odium, whose goal is to break everyone. Autonomy is also a natural enemy to harmony. Harmony, this idea of Zen and everything being in balance and one, that type of thing, doesn't go well with the idea of autonomy, just wanting to be, self-sufficient. It's also worth noting that Sazed is the opposite of autonomy because autonomy keeps splintering himself into or herself. I always forget Bavadin's a girl just because the name just sounds like, I don't know, sounds like a dwarf. I just imagine a dwarf dude with a big bushy beard. Although I guess dwarf women. Look, I'm not good on that. Point is, Harmony is one dude holding two shards, whereas autonomy at this point is a lot of people holding one shard. Still seems backwards from autonomy to me, but we'll see how that plays out. But to me, I actually think that this Trell might be a combined entity, similar maybe to the sibling that is coming after Sazed. That this is a joint project. I don't have a ton of evidence for this, but the fact that it's men of red and gold, the gold of odium, just it weighs on me. I don't think it's Light Song. I don't think it's Light Song, so I don't know. That's right now my prediction. It's some sort of combined entity like the sibling. We'll see. So Wax's uncle was alive the entire time. This I cannot claim that I saw. I sort of just forgot about that entire plot thread as the Vanishers plot kept going forward. The fact that Wax's uncle is Mr. Suit, and the fact that The Vanishers was nothing but a distraction for the real ploy, an insurance fraud plot. I love my villains doing that. The Xanatos Gambit. Check it out on TV Tropes. It's really good. But just the concept of, while you were off doing that, we were committing petty white collar crime. It reminds me sort of the idea of Joker in The Dark Knight, where he says, "You think I was going to risk the soul of Gotham in a fist fight with you? Is that stupid? What villain takes the hero head on? No. You go at things sideways. Go at them sideways." And unfortunately, Max didn't see that coming. Lawful evil has always been far more intimidating to me, villain, than chaotic evil. The evil that can cloak itself in the mundanity of in the bureaucracy, that's terrifying, because they're also the ones that make it so very difficult to bring down the weight and power of everyone else on top of them. You can bring the constables to help you against Miles Thousand Lives because he's obviously the villain. But white collar crime against a bank that is very difficult to prove and would take so much time and energy, and in the end, it doesn't have the same life and death immediacy that something like the Vanishers pose. Such a good villainous thing here. And what a great hook to lead us into the book. Oh, look. That rhymed. You fool of a took. But of course, Wax doesn't leave empty-handed. And Wax doesn't give away too much here. He's able to make his uncle think that he's further behind than he really is. And he's also able to steal the ledger through a little sleight of hand. Wayne is very proud, of course. I love it. And now we get the end to Maricy's, and she meets up with old Iron Eyes himself. Marsh. It's awesome. Oh, it feels so good to see Marsh. I don't know why it feels so good. Man, it's good to see you, friend. Poor Marsh. Got those spikes in his eyes for here to eternity. I find it interesting that he talks about how Wax is doing his brother's work. Because, one, Wax isn't a survivorist, Pathian. But two, it shows that Marsh does respect his brother now, which is interesting given what we know. You know, we know Helsier's up to things. We don't know the full specifics, and I wonder how much he knows. But at the same time, gives them the hemalurgy information that the spook had. And I find it interesting that he's now the Grim Reaper of Scadrial. This was pointed out recently on a Shardcast that there's a very interesting duality between Marsh and Kelsier, and beyond them just being brothers. Marsh joined the revolution and then gave up, whereas Kelsier just never cared and then ended up forming the revolution. Kelsier died, but is called the survivor. Marsh lived, but he's the one associated with death. Just sort of they pointed that out, and I just went sort of mind blown. I wonder how much Brandon intended that duality to be. Probably a ton. The guy outlined. Madman. I don't know, it was sort of interesting. And how weird must it be for Maricy? Like it'd be like just walking up in Bigfoot being like, "Hey, here's a thumb drive with my TED Talk. Peace." And then just, sort of does that awkward walk right back into the forest and you never see him again. That's the equivalent, right? It's this creature of legend shows up, hands you a book, and then pieces out. Maricy's left standing there just being like, my life has gone in a very interesting direction. Finally end the book with the iconic duo of Wax and Wayne. We get a very interesting conversation between the pair, with Wayne claiming that Wax owes him money for a bet he wasn't there for, and gets to hold him to it because he should have been there for an interesting concept of being able to hold each other accountable for being where they need to be, and both of them resolving that they're both going to be there for each other. Because in the end, what took down Miles? The fact that he was alone, that he didn't have anyone backing him up. And Wax and Wayne are not going to make the same mistake. Back when this book ended, we didn't know if we were going to get more from this era. I suspected at the end of this book we would get more, because you can't end on that juicy cliffhanger. You just can't. We don't even know where the girls are. We still don't know where those kidnapped girls are. Ooh, that could be really dark. That could be really dark. But we didn't know at the time. And this was just such an excellent setup, which leads us to the next bit of the Cosmere reread. We're now going to be picking up what is one of the darkest books Brandon will ever write, Shadows of Self. Prologue through chapter 4 is what we're going to be tackling. So go ahead, get to reading those, get your questions in. Should be interesting. This next book, it's quite the tonal shift from the old Western tale to a Hollywood style thriller with a mix of bullets and fantasy and tears. So many tears. I'm not looking forward to this. Shadows of Self is not a pleasant read, but it's a good read, which I guess that's what we pay Brandon for. I much prefer the optimism of Alloy of Law. Let's just say that. Anyway, until next time, thanks for listening, and remember, there's always a secret.